Hello, Dawn Moore, Legence Title Company. After my videos, I often get questions from viewers that can be answered with one or two sentences. I do try to answer them directly, but then I realized these may be some of the very same questions that you have. So I thought I would take this opportunity today to read some of these questions and give you my answers. The first question has to do with the recent recommendation I made on a video as to the amendment to the survey exception in the title policy. This came about because there was a change in paragraph 6A8 of the new contract that had a box to check, and you were asking me how you should help your buyer negotiate this provision. My recommendation was that you always check that the exception will be amended to read shortages in area only. The question is, does this actually stand as a recommendation for townhomes and condominiums as well? My answer to this question is, it does stand for townhomes, but not for condominiums. The reason: townhomes are properties that own the land underneath the home. Therefore, this amendment would be of value. Condominiums, on the other hand, don't own the land underneath the condominium. Therefore, this would have no relevance. In fact, your condominium contract doesn't have this same change in it as your 1-to-4 family. 6A8 of that contract has not been changed to have a box to check about it will being amended. And under your condominium contracts, you don't even have a provision for providing a survey. Therefore, it's not relevant with a condominium contract. The next question came after a discussion of escalation clauses in one of my videos. Escalation clauses are those clauses and special provisions that state something like, buyer agrees to pay $1,500 more than the next highest bona fide offer received by seller. Before I give you the question and the answer, I want to remind you that TAR has strongly discouraged the use of escalation clauses, and in fact say that if you use escalation clauses in your contract, you are practicing law without a license. Having given you that warning, I want to give you the question. The question submitted to me was, if a seller receives an escalation clause in a contract, can the seller send back a new contract to that buyer? More specifically, can the seller counter that buyer? My answer to that question is yes, a seller can counter any offer he's received. But I'm not sure why you would counter that offer, because what that offer states is that the buyer will pay $1,500 more than any other high offer the seller gets. So I'm not sure what the seller would counter with. Now, if the seller receives competing escalation clauses, meaning two contracts with escalation clauses in the special provisions, the seller has no choice but to go back and ask the buyers to submit offers with specific numbers. When you have competing escalation clauses, it is like chasing a bouncing ball. The next question that was brought up was after a discussion of the changes to the new contract. The new contract states that the paragraph 4 setting forth the financing terms cannot be used if the buyer is going to use a reverse mortgage to purchase the property. Well, the question naturally follows is, what do you use if your buyer is qualified for a reverse mortgage purchase loan? TREC has approved a reverse mortgage financing addendum. That form is approved and it is on the TREC website under their forms and contracts. It has not been promulgated, but it has been approved for your use. What that means is that you can use that form to write a contract where your buyer wants to use a reverse mortgage for the purchase. Or if your attorney or the principal's attorney want to prepare a different form, they can. Your association can prepare a form for your use as well. Until that form is promulgated, you can use any other form prepared by an attorney or your association for that use. Last question for today. Who is responsible for satisfying a violation of a covenant or restriction of a homeowners association, such as painting a fence or other types of maintenance of the property? Is the seller automatically required to satisfy that violation? My answer to that question is no. I do believe it is the seller's responsibility to disclose the violation to the buyer, but this is no different than any other item of repair or maintenance. Once disclosed, the buyer can accept the property as is. Seller's failure to disclose this item is a little problematic for me. Sometimes sellers claim they didn't know about it. But if it is a violation of a covenant or restriction of the homeowners association, there is a high likelihood that the homeowners association gave the seller notice of this. The fact that the seller never opened up the letter received from the homeowners association doesn't mean the seller can say he did not know about it. On the other hand, it is imperative that the buyer review the resale certificate he gets prior to closing. The homeowners association is required to disclose any violations of covenants and restrictions on the resale certificate. Buyer's failure to review that resale certificate that he receives before closing does not excuse the buyer from the responsibility of that disclosure. The buyer has been given notice of that violation if he received the resale certificate prior to closing. Next week, I'm going to address some questions that I've received on title and lien issues. In the meantime, I hope this has answered some of the questions you have. If I can ever be of any assistance, please email me or call me. I'm happy to answer your questions. We want to be your resource for results here at Allegiance Title Company. Thank you.